Hello there, friends, and welcome back to the series where I'm completing an Animal Crossing island in 30 days. You know, today's kind of a big deal because today marks the first day of the last week of this challenge, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Just in case you're new around here, these are the rules that we've laid out for this challenge. And with that, let's jump right into our last week on our island, Aedelwood. Now, we've done like a ton of big builds this past week or so on the island. We did the lake, the shopping district, and the farm, which was so big we had to do it in 2 parts. And you might have already guessed it, but today we're going to be working on filling in the beaches of Aedelwood. Now, I've mentioned it before, but my kind of plan for the beaches is to kind of have them be like this sort of rocky main coast kind of thing. And we played around with that a little bit down here by this boardwalk area, which we will also be coming back and finishing at some point today. So yeah, my goal was just to kind of give them a rocky coast sort of feel. Now, I imagine this episode is going to be pretty tedious whenever it comes to the actual decorating because it's basically just one huge space filler episode. So I think we're going to do this one as kind of a speed build sort of thing, but I'll be chatting over it again, kind of like usual. So with that, let's go ahead and get started on tackling this huge project. Now, if you guys remember, whenever we did the little pathing for this front section of the island here, I had put those stairs there because I kind of anticipated there would be some sort of... Actually, to be totally honest, I had no idea what I was going to put here, but I figured this could lead to somewhere, right? Because it's right by the front of the island. Maybe we could find some use for this beach that wasn't just like rocks and weeds and filler. So I decided to put another little boardwalk section over here. This is more of like a chill place though. This is kind of like if you want to get away from the hustle and bustle of like the downtown sort of area, you know, this would be like a relaxing place to come like read a book, grab some coffee, just kind of sit and watch the ocean. Because the other boardwalk that we have on the island right now is kind of over in the carnival area, and I feel like that would be like a really overwhelming kind of place to go hang out. So I wanted to have a more relaxing boardwalk spot on our island. So that's basically what we're working on now. But as I'm talking about kind of my mindset and my intention behind this little build that we're working on, I'm actually reminded of a comment that I got on a recent video. I'm trying, which is the most relatable username I've ever heard, I feel that, asked what my steps are when I'm planning a build. So like the shopping district, the farm, and the neighborhood, which are all ones we've kind of completed on this island, but just kind of asking a little bit more about the process. So I figured while we're kind of doing some filler and some areas that don't really need to be planned out as much, that could kind of be a good time to just sort of talk on that while we're not really focusing on anything major here. So my first step whenever I'm working on a build, kind of like you actually did see with this boardwalk here, is I figure out where the biggest parts of the build need to be. So like in this case, it was the big boardwalk, which required a lot of pathing and like just laying down of custom codes to be done. And you can actually see that in all those other builds that you mentioned too, like in the shopping district. I did that part off screen, to be fair, but I played around with where I might like all of the buildings to go, and I actually used the in-game custom path tool because that way it shows up on my map. And that's something that I do a lot when I'm trying to figure out the placement of buildings and particular things, especially like shops and houses, is if you put putting that in-game path down so I can flip back and forth and reference the map and see if I like it. Really, referencing the map is optional, but just having a reference for where they're going to actually go so I can kind of imagine it in my mind's eye is super helpful. Though sometimes it kind of depends on what I need from an area, because areas like the county fair that we have over here on the front right side of the island, and honestly even kind of the farm, I focused more on the path at first, because it was more about like being able to walk and kind of navigate through those sections, and it was less about like what I actually needed those sections for. But in those areas still, I did plan where the big features would go, like the plaza items in the carnival, or like the hayfield and the crop fields and stuff for the farm. So starting with the big things and then working your way down really helps me when I'm working on building specific areas on the island. However, when it comes to planning like actual islands as a whole, that's a lot more challenging for me, and this is actually my first experience with, I feel like, accomplishing that well, and obviously I say that with a grain of salt because the island's not quite done yet, so I guess we kind of have to see how well it all comes out in the end still. But yeah, what I did for this island is I actually like took a screenshot of my in-game map, and then I just sent that picture from my Switch to my iPad and kind of drew over like a very, very rough draft that I'll go ahead and throw up on screen here again in case anyone missed that in the other video where I showed it off. But that also kind of went hand in hand with the mood board I made for the island to kind of figure out the overall vibe I wanted the island to have. Once I did the mood board, I kind of figured out like, okay, I want to have these certain builds on the island, right? Like I wanted to have a little shopping area, I wanted to have a farm, I wanted to have like a county fair sort of thing. So really, if you're gonna try to plan out a whole island, think first about what you actually want to see on the island and what you want to do for your builds. Because from there, I was able to take those ideas and like general vibe and translate it into like a kind of idea of how I might want to lay out the whole island. And whenever it comes to trying to plan out where you want to have certain builds, like I'll show you guys my rough draft again, always overestimate how much area you need for a build, because it's a lot easier to make your builds bigger if they need to fill up more space than it is to make them smaller if they need to fill up less space, from my experience anyway. Like the neighborhood took up literally the entire like basically bottom left side of our island, like the whole thing from resident services over. But before I actually got to working on the neighborhood, I had thought like, oh, I'll probably have a ton of space left over. Maybe I can add like a little port or something there, put some ships and some water codes, and it could be like kind of a cool thing to add on to the coast. There was literally no room left for the neighborhood. I actually ended up having to rethink my whole plan for the neighborhood because it was getting too close to the like back part of our island where we're gonna have the spooky forest and the cryptid tent and all of that. So yeah, all of that to say, always overestimate the space you need for your builds. And like speaking of expanding, you actually got to see me do that with this boardwalk we're working on here. I had originally put the fencing on the boardwalk, and that kind of left me with not really enough room to work with and get the vibe that I really wanted to have for this area. So I simply moved the fence backwards off of the boardwalk to give myself more room to decorate and work with, and that helped so much with trying to figure out how I was going to fill the area. Obviously, this is a much smaller example than doing a whole build on one particular section of the island, but it gets the idea across, you know? And if it's specifically the layout part that's really tripping you up whenever it comes to building and working on sections on your own island, I 100% recommend Pinterest. Like, people have such good skills whenever it comes to creating Animal Crossing designs. You can find ideas for literally anything on there. And if you can't find an idea for something exactly like you're trying to do, then take inspiration from similar ideas and you can be that inspiration for someone else, which is awesome. Like, for real, this community has no shortage of creativity, and I continue to be awed by some of the builds that I see, and the game's been out for nearly 5 years. If, like, browsing pictures isn't really your thing, what you can also do is a lot of people over on Instagram and probably other social media sites too, maybe even Pinterest, but I've mostly seen them on Instagram, post dream addresses for their completed islands and such, so you can either tour them yourself or look up island tours here on YouTube. Like, tons of content creators post island tours for either their own islands or other people's islands, so that way you can either follow along with their tour or go see it yourself. I've definitely done that on occasion to be able to like walk around a build that I had gotten inspiration for online and really get to know the scale of it like in-game. There's something different about seeing it in-game versus on a still image on Pinterest. Oh, also, side note from the talk about island planning, but you guys might see that I left that little spot blank on the beach here, and that's because, actually, another comment, in my storytime video of my insane work drama experience, which, like, since I've kind of had time to process it, I kind of forgot just how shocking that story is. If you want to watch it, go watch our laying path and spilling tea video. It's a pretty good one. In my unbiased opinion, of course. But someone commented that in honor of my horrible experience with the owners of this particular daycare service I used to work at, I should make like a childcare kind of thing for like the villagers on the island. And I thought that was a really cute idea and like another good way to like let the community and let you guys have a say in like the island, because this is something that we're all sharing together. You know, you guys are on this journey just as much as I am. So I'm thinking in that little spot, kind of near the carnival, I might put a little playground. It's not quite a childcare kind of place, but I think that having a little playground there would still be kind of a nod to the whole like idea of childcare and such. So we're definitely going to come back and do that little build over there. I don't have enough playground items right now to do that. So we'll probably revisit that whenever we end up doing our like last minute fillers episode, which off the top of my head, I know will include our peninsula build, the post office, and now the little playground. And y'all, I literally cannot make this up, but just as I finished telling you guys about like going to watch that last video and how we're going to immortalize that bad service with that job that I got laid off of from recently, I got a call back from one of the jobs that I applied to today as a, just a little receptionist job, kind of local, but hey, I'm all down for a cushy receptionist job. I think that sounds like something I'd be really good at. And I got an interview set up for later this week, so we'll see. I'll keep you guys posted on that, but like I had to update you guys on that because I literally got the phone call while I'm doing this voiceover, so who would I be to not fill you guys in on that? And this moment where I've like just told you guys about this little update, like I have really no idea what else to talk about now. So instead, I'm going to talk about another question that I actually got on one of our recent videos, our farm part 1. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I freaking love the farm. But this is from Cross Capybara, who asked, what's your future plans for the channel? Staying on Animal Crossing, going other places, visiting dream addresses? And I figure with talking about a new job opportunity, that's kind of a good enough segue into talking about the future of the channel, right? At least well enough that I'm gonna roll with it anyways. But I mean, like, future plans for the channel, there's gonna be a lot of Animal Crossing content here, just simply because I love this game. And it's one of the things that makes me really sad about this game, that like, it's not really in its prime anymore, so there's not as many big Animal Crossing YouTubers, people putting out that much content, so like, if anyone else is like me, I feel like there's definitely a subset of people that would love to continue to watch Animal Crossing content, and I'm happy to oblige. I would love to keep creating Animal Crossing content. But beyond that, I mean, I would like to play some other cozy games in general, or even really just other games too, but interspersed with Animal Crossing content, obviously. But in general, I don't see this channel straying too far from like the realm of cozy content. I might play some horror games, maybe I'll try like Twitch streaming and doing something like that at some point too, that could be fun. But yeah, really this channel is just gonna kind of be like what I'm interested in. So that includes cozy games, maybe some spooky games, probably some art content. So yeah, if you guys are enjoying this content so far and just listening to me ramble, there's gonna be no shortage of that in any other content that comes to the channel, I promise. However, kind of like I mentioned a minute ago, there's not as many Animal Crossing YouTubers doing content, and I know back in the day, touring dream addresses was a huge deal. So, I mean, like, yeah, anyone's welcome to leave DAs if you'd like to see me tour and talk about your island, you're welcome to leave them down there. I've seen some creators do like a Google form, so maybe I'll work on doing something like that at some point, but if I ever come up with a Google form, there will be at the very least a community post, if not like mentioning it in a video that I upload. So you guys are welcome to look out for that if you want, or just kind of drop your DA and let me know what your theme is. Let me know if you have like an Instagram or somewhere where you've posted your island so I can kind of get a feel for what the vibe is. And I would totally be down to do some of those at some point. All right, but we're kind of in the final stages of this build here. I have run out of wheat fields as of working on this final little section here. So this is gonna be another part 1 and part 2 sort of episode. I don't know if we'll do it necessarily back to back, we'll see. But I guess we'll all find out tomorrow at noon Central. Sorry, future Ashley, that's the best transition I've got. Roll with it. All right, and that is going to do it for today's episode, I guess part 1 of our beach filler episode. And you know what? Given that I've never really bothered to decorate any of the beaches on my other islands, I am very pleasantly surprised with how well we were able to get across the whole like rocky beach kind of vibe, given the limited like big rock items that we have in this game. So not upset about that at all. If you've made it to this point in the video, first off, thank you for hanging out with me. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing to the channel. I've gotten a couple really sweet comments lately talking about how people find my channel and expect me to have way more subscribers because of the quality of the videos I'm putting out, which warms my heart. I'm glad you guys can see all of the effort and love and care I put into these videos. But anyways, on your way out, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube jazz, and I will see you guys in tomorrow's episode. Bye! Gosh, were you muted?